How's it going, guys and gals? My name is Sergeant Beckett and welcome back to another Sergeant Beckett Reacts video. We are once again reacting to Jubilee's Middle Ground. And today's one, I went on my reaction playlist, I clicked shuffle, and I was ready to watch this one. And the reason why I hesitated to watch this video based on this time, there are a few things I can't name just because they're little things that I've experienced in the past. It's one of those things where you know it happens, but you just can't name it because you don't. You can't describe what it is. But the one thing I can name is DaVinci Resolve. Don't know what it is. For some reason lately, any video that's close to an hour or over an hour, DaVinci struggles with it. Now, it could be the fact that my computer is low on storage. It could be that. It could be that. I don't know. I need to figure it out.
Regarding storage costs, standard storage is standard storage.
Computer, shut up. But for whatever reason, it doesn't like me editing things over an hour, and if I do edit things over an hour, it just lags after everything I do. I click a tool, it lags. I cut a track on the timeline, it lags. I move a dial a dial where I can position something to one side of the screen. If I move it one bit to the left and one bit to the right, it lags. I don't know. So it's a stupid reason, but it was a reason nonetheless. But you know what? The thing that made me watch it was I was looking. I went onto these chapter things and I looked at some of the things, and so I thought, I think it's worth a watch. So without any further ado, I'm gonna stop rambling about my excuses for not wanting to watch this one. Let's get on and watch it.
Middle Ground is a social experiment that brings humans with opposing beliefs together. These discussions may contain viewpoints that are the result of misinformation. Remember to seek out experts and to be critical of your own biases while forming an opinion. Please see the humanity in each participant, and as always, we encourage empathy.
When you say we're just redefining what being a man is, you have to understand you're redefining a fabric in society that has kept the human race and got it to where it is today.
But do you see the state of our world today? It's not perfect, and it's been led by men like throughout all of history, and look where it's gone.
Step forward if you agree with the prompt. Masculinity is disappearing in America.
I think that masculinity is disappearing. I think that it's a concerted effort to emasculate men. I think that some people feel threatened by masculinity and the typical way that men carry themselves, leading families and different things like that. So I think that there's an effort to mitigate strong men in America.
There's a few different ways to think about masculinity, but just looking at kind of the definition of the term 50 years ago, you had people like John Wayne, you had Martin Luther King, you had Sean Connery. You think of like masculine features as in beards, hairy chest, big muscles, think stoic, being brave, being rugged, being a provider. Today you have people like Harry Styles and Timothy Chalamet. You have people that are completely contrary to what we were looking at back then, and those values of those masculine characteristics are completely devalued.
I do believe that masculinity is going downhill, especially if you look at like the testosterone levels. Now the testosterone levels for guys is going down compared to generations before us. So yeah, I agree. Hi, I'm Gilbert, I'm 24 years old and I'm a conservative man. With my beliefs and having a trans man as my friend, we don't really talk about politics. Someone being trans doesn't make me like them any less of a person. As far as pronouns, when referring to my friend, I don't really use the pronouns that my friend would want. I just say my friend or I say their name, just because I feel like I'm giving into the narrative that men can be women and women can be men if I use the pronouns that they want. I'm 24 years old and I'm a conservative man. With my beliefs and having a trans man as my friend, we don't really talk about politics. Someone being trans doesn't make me like them any less of a person. As far as pronouns, when referring to my friend, I don't really use the pronouns that my friend would want. I just say my friend or I say their name, just because I feel like I'm giving into the narrative that men can be women and women can be men if I use the pronouns that they want.
I do see that masculinity is under attack completely, but my definition of masculinity, like you said, has a lot to do with the traits that are associated with it. As a gay man, I mean, of all of us, I'm not the most masculine man, but I do think that the good aspects of masculinity are definitely under attack, but I don't think that it's disappearing, it's just being channeled in different ways.
It depends on how you look at it, because a lot of the traits can also be embodied in women and femininity. So when we look at masculinity, I think that we have to also look at what is the actual definition of femininity and masculinity, and if we're defining masculinity by being stoic or muscles or body parts, then
I mean, I think because he's got a point on one of those ones there, because depending on what I do in editing, I may have I probably would have skipped cut out, but I paused the video when it asked the question, and I had to do a bit of research because I wasn't. Because my answer would have been, it depends. Right, because it depends, because obviously, it's a hard one, but this is testing me, this is, Jesus Christ.
is it really masculinity or muscles or body parts? Then is it really masculinity?
A lot of times when you guys spoke about masculinity, you associate it with men being manly, but I think more women are embracing their masculinity. Masculinity is still there. I mean, just other genders are using it. Being courageous, being powerful, more women are standing in their power, which is again associated with masculine, but it's not specific to just men. Women are no longer submissive, they're dominant. Women don't need men, and I think that most of America is realizing that anyone can be powerful on their own.
I believe that the masculine traits are inherently in men, and men have to take a position. You made a really good point by saying women are now becoming more masculine. They feel as if they don't need men, which I think is the problem here. I think that the way we've been designed by God, in my opinion, is that men are to lead, men are to be strong, men are to be brave. Men have to take their rightful position. The way our country has been structured to this point have been because of strong men who have taken a stand, who have fought wars. Now I feel like it's getting so lopsided that our families are degrading. People don't know where they're at in this country.
Now in 2022, masculinity is being redefined. And I think what happens is people get upset when things start to change. No, I think that nobody ever wants to take that away from men. I think that what we want to do in the world now is start to understand what is masculinity. And it's always been really associated with this very machismo space. And now there's different kinds of men in the world. There's not just biological men. There's also trans men or people who want to be masculine. So I think what's happening now is people are pushing against change because change is scary and people don't understand. And so I think men, biological men, feel under attack, when I think that's not what's happening here.
The point that you made is 100% correct. There are different phases and people are experiencing in different ways. The feminist movement is, I think they are attacking masculinity within men. I don't want a man to open the door for me. I don't need a man in my life. I can do all of these different things. What they're doing is attacking men, and that's what's causing the problem.
What part of the feminist group feels like it's attacking? Because I know that most feminism is like wanting equal pay or...
Well, you just said that women not needing men is somehow empowering. You know, having a man is somehow less empowering, or being an individual is somehow less empowering.
But that's how women feel. Right. Women actually are saying that because that's how they feel. It's
but that's not how every woman feels.
But no one's saying every woman. They're only women speak for themselves. So all of you are going to have different opinions as biological men.
Absolutely.
Women all have different opinions. Oh, you see a very specific group of women saying this.
I mean, you did just say that's how women feel. So are you speaking on behalf of all
women?
No,
no, I'm not. Let me take that back. So, the women who are saying that feel that way.
Why do you feel that women in general feel disempowered?
I don't think in general. No. That's a generalized statement. You can't say that. I said
you're the
women.
One
no, I did not. I said the women who say that.
You associated somehow women are now embracing masculinity, which means that they are now more empowered because they don't need a man.
Or right. Men feel empowered when women need them.
But I don't think that women's empowerment comes from having a man or not having a man. So why is it always associated that a woman's now empowered because she doesn't need a man? A woman has always been empowered.
But because it's the way, it's because it's how, it's history. we've been taught in our history that in the past that it's always been men have been the dominating gender, and oh, sorry, no, men have been the dominating sex, and then obviously when women have been the one that's not been the less dominant sex. We've been taught that that's how it's been, and so to what you're saying, actually I've kind of forgotten, but I get the premise. I remember the premise of what you were saying, but not word for word. But that's why. It's because they feel that. Oh, let me just listen to what he said again. So it's making why you saying that? Why are you saying that? That's because they feel that they haven't always been empowered. And I'm surprised that you would say that, because I'm surprised that you would say that. Well, actually, no, I don't know if I'm surprised or not, but like, there's a reason why it's a thing. There's a reason why women feel the need to be empowered. It's because they haven't. It's because in the past, in history, they haven't felt that empowerment. That's why.
We've never been.
But they've never felt that.
That's not true.
I mean, if we go back to the 1920s, if you're going to do that, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about society right now.
Right now, you actually think women are empowered right now?
I mean, I get, but it stems from it, doesn't it? It stems from that. It's a thing that, and yes, we're talking about it now, but it's something that's been influenced by stuff. It's something that's been it's an influence. It's something that's been influenced from the history and stuff. And I think that's why it's that's why. And that's why he's talking about things from like back in the day, because it's something that's influenced. It's being influenced today.
Absolutely, women are empowered.
Who's the vice president?
And how long did it take for her to become a vice president, though?
There is a right and wrong way to be a man.
No.
Take a second to think about it.
Yeah, definitely. No. There isn't. I mean, if you ask that question maybe 50, 100 years ago, that might be. Some people might go step forward and say yes, but I think, no, it's not. There is no right or wrong way to be a man. I think it's all part of the thing of just living how you want to be. Like if you, like for example, okay, I'll take me as an example. These guys I mentioned the general traditional the traditional and the roots of what masculinity means, like the whole like driven, determined, muscular, and protective and stuff, that sort of stuff. There are a few attributes to the general the definition of masculinity that I know do not apply to me, because I'm not very muscular or anything. I'm not very muscular, but I am driven and I'm determined to do things. And does that make me any less of a man? I don't think so. I consider myself to be a man. I mean, I know I'm not the most manly of men, I know that for sure, but I'm still a man. That's how I still see myself as that way. And so, no. I don't think that there isn't no right or wrong way, because everyone is different. Everyone is brought up differently, everyone has their own beliefs and views, and everyone lives their life differently, so, no, there isn't. I don't believe that anyway. Ooh.
I think that when I originally heard the question being asked, I didn't agree with it, but men are not abusive individuals. Men are not to be cowards. Men are to lead their families. And men who do not display that, I don't believe that they are men, in my opinion. And all of the qualities that I see in my father is what I believe a man should be.
All of those characteristics are what make a man. And when I see a man be a coward in the truth, in just speaking the truth, or sticking up for what's right, especially today in America with everything going on, I'm like, those are not men. My name is Clarkson. I'm 24 years old, and I'm a conservative man. My biggest question for the other side really is, are you happy? Anybody that wants to fundamentally change society and change gender roles, to me, that's not happiness. And if we want to fight for acceptance, we need to start with acceptance, which is accepting society for what it is.
At the end of the day, we're all men, and I don't believe there's any wrong way to be a man. We're just redefining what it means to be a man.
But there are things that naturally come to men. So when you say we're just redefining what being a man is, you have to understand you're redefining a fabric in society that has kept the human race and got it to where it is today. So just like aimlessly throwing out, oh, well, we're just redefining what it is to be a man, that's not just like a light subject that we should be talking about.
But why do you think it has to stay the same?
I'm
Why
sorry?
do we need to have the same thing for hundreds and hundreds of years?
Do you not see the state
It's not the same
of,
thing, it's just, it's
said.
keeping the same qualities.
But do you see the state of our world today? It's not perfect. It's been led by men like throughout all of history, and look where it's gone.
So we're talking about redesigning what it means to be a man. So what do you want to bring to traditional men?
I think it's embracing that you can be vulnerable. I think that a lot of men want to portray strength, 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 but men are people, and I know that men have feelings.
Being a man and masculinity, those are two different things. And I believe that we can redefine whatever that means to anybody by including other types of men or other types of masculinity. I myself am a father, I have a child. Some people would disagree with me being a father because I am transgender. But that being said, I present to the world as a male, my child sees me as a man.
There's proper ways to be vulnerable, right? You don't have to break down in front of your family and cry. It's okay to suffer in silence as well. Strong men, I believe, exude the qualities that you guys are referring to. I think the problem is overcorrection, right? Some people believe that men need to cry and lay on the ground and be feminine like women. My name is Brandon. I'm 34 years old, and I'm a conservative man. I had a lot of curiosities about what it's like to be a person who believes that they're a trans man. You know, I feel like God has created all of us very uniquely, and although I have beliefs and I follow the Bible to the T, I still want to know from other people what their experiences are. Doesn't mean I have to agree, but I really want to know what other people are feeling from the person who's experiencing it real time.
I have male privilege.
Yes. Yes? Well, I think so.
Oh, sit over.
I've lived both lives, and I can tell you firsthand that it does exist. I am taken much more seriously in my career since I've transitioned as a man. Prior to transitioning, I would work just as hard, if not harder, for the same position and not be considered. The minute that I transition, I am immediately taken more seriously. I can give you an example. Obviously with COVID, there's like the mask mandate, right? So I have to tell customers all the time, it needs to be above your nose, right? I do that all day. My manager who's above me, who is a woman, will have to go to them, tell them they give her a fight. But the minute I just look in their direction, it's up. It doesn't seem like a privilege, but it is, because now my manager has to work 3 times harder for something that's so simple.
I think the word privilege is the thing that turns a lot of people off with this conversation. But that being said, again, myself living my life as a female, pretty much half my life, and then now half my life as a man. There is no way I could not be honest about the fact that my life has changed drastically. Also being a white man, that's also a conversation a lot of people don't want to have. But I have privilege of being white and privilege also of being a man now. I can walk into any room and command that room in a heartbeat because people just do that with men. And I think the thing is that biological men are born into that space, so they'll never ever see it. Why do we now, as women who have become men, get to have this thing? It's 100% because we are men. We look like men. Nobody would ever know. No one would ever know that we used to be women. So it's actually a real lived experience.
So I agree with a lot of what you all are saying as far as like transitioning. But as a black man, privilege looks way different for me, because if I'm walking down the street, then I'm seen as a threat by police, by women, by anybody else. Being seen as a man is where my privilege stops and where everything else begins. So I don't see it as privilege.
Okay, I got a lot to say about this topic here. And first of all, I mean, we have to be transparent and honest with each other. You know, I think that not everybody on this side presents 100% like a man. Like if I saw you in the streets, I wouldn't think you were a man. You know, men have it really hard in this world, and they've always had it hard in this world. The wars have been fought by men. They've died in the hundreds of thousands. Men commit suicide more. Men work more the dangerous jobs. You know, if somebody broke in this place right now, who are they going to expect to defend everybody in here? It's going to be the men. If your family fails, they're not looking at your wife. They're not. They're looking at the man. You know, I just want people to understand it. There's some advantages that men have, and then also men do struggle in custody and all kinds of different things.
100%. I 100% agree with you as a man now, right? But I think my perception of it is different than yours because you were born male, you were raised male, you have a whole other space in that, and I totally respect your opinion on that, and I believe that that is a true lived experience as a born man.
Yeah, and let me add with the black man, because we have a total different reality in that. I don't, in no way, form, or fashion do I go into a room and I feel like I'm less than. I think I command presence when I go into a room because the way I'm dressed, and I'm tall. I go in the streets, I've never had a person cross the street. I've never been attacked by a police officer. I was a police officer. You know, I've been pulled over probably 3 times in my entire life.
I mean, my biggest question with this and why I don't necessarily agree with it is because when it comes to privilege, there's not really a way to quantify it. It's very subjective. So like your version of male privilege and your version of male privilege are very different.
So it's hard to see the other side because you've never lived it.
Yeah.
The difference between you and us is we see it because we've lived it. You have not. So it's easy to speak and be like, well, it doesn't exist. Well, how would you know?
Well, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I think everybody has certain privileges, but what I think the question here is what defines male privilege over women? Because women have privileges too. So is there a graph that you guys are calculating to make men have more than women, or what?
The privilege is not acknowledging what you have that comes so easy.
So do you think that your fear, because you live both sides, do you think your fear is something that you have in your mind, or you think it's a reality? Because no, let me say this: you never really changed as a person. You're the same person
right,
that you
exactly.
were. So you have the same physical capabilities that you did when you were a woman.
No.
You don't?
No, my strength is entirely different after taking
what
hormones.
percentage would you say?
More than 100%.
Okay,
I weighed
so,
like 100 pounds. Now I weigh like 133.
You're still not probably as strong as me.
But it's not about strength. It's that women are targeted. Men are not targeted. I mean, maybe sometimes. I'm not saying it's never going to happen.
They're targeted by other men. Most of the homicides
but women are
in this
targeted
country
by other men. I think women have less of a safe space. That's
I disagree. Men don't have a safe space. If you go to certain
But I'm talking
cities,
about
they get murdered by
okay, but
other
I'm not
men,
talking about certain cities.
more
I'm
so
talking
than
about
women.
everyday life.
Yeah, every day.
Not
I think
certain
that's a
cities.
blanket statement.
Have you been attacked as a woman?
I have.
I have been pressurized.
I've been raped. I've been attacked. I can go on and on and on. I was homeless.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Like in the general term, and the generalization of it. I'm not going for what like guys area like certain cities or like specific areas. In the general term, yes, women are attacked more. Yeah, but for a multitude of reasons. I mean, yeah.
Living in the streets, raped all the time. It happens. It's a real thing. I didn't see the guys on the street getting raped, but
men do get raped.
100%. But the experience of
Do you get catcalled down the street? Like,
I mean, women.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree. Yeah, men do get raped, but do you hear about that more often? I mean, that's probably the side, the side of the media, and media probably has a part in that. But I think it's still kind of, do you hear about that? No, you don't.
Say things to me when I was a police officer.
Do you feel threatened? You feel empowered though, right?
No, I don't feel empowered. I feel that's
But do you feel scared? Do you feel threatened when a woman catcalls you?
No, I don't. And I don't feel threatened if a man try to challenge.
Because you have that male privilege.
Right. As a woman,
what if a man was whistling at you when you were walking down the street?
I've had it happen to me. I had gay men whistle to me.
But how does that make you feel?
I don't care.
Okay, cool.
I mean, as long as you don't touch me, we cool.
Right.
I know you may think I'm attractive. That's fine. That's cool. I get it.
I think women will say the same thing. As long as you're not like trying to be predatory, and I've seen it because I go to clubs with my friends who are girls, and I have to tell the men to literally leave them alone because they keep going. And they're predatory, and they're literally scouting out for women that are drunk or whatever, not even drunk. She could say no 1,000 times, and they're still gonna bother her. But the minute that I say something, they stop.
Women are not as strong as men, and they get targeted. Sure, yes, that is a privilege that men have over women, but that doesn't mean that men have privilege because of that one situation. Men commit suicide way more than women do.
Because if we're gonna go that route, trans men commit suicide twice the rate.
But that's not.
I think what's important here is to distinguish the fact that yes, no one is negating the fact that women can get preyed on. You know, there's situations where this happens, right? Like no one's going to deny that. But we're also just trying to say that it's not like a one-sided coin here, where there's no like men are just, we just have it good and we can do whatever we want.
I do
we
not
can't,
believe
we can't even be the next Supreme Court justice because it's like.
But again, I live as a man, so I see the difference.
Wow.
Now.
Yeah.
When I said I have privilege and I walk into a room, of course, but then there's other things that are expected of me now as a man that I would never knew were expected.
So
of
would
me.
you guys agree that there's such thing as female privilege?
Oh, sure, 100%.
My wife has privilege because she has me.
That's right.
So she don't have to worry about her
Right
safety
on.
because I'm there.
I don't believe that as a man, it's like, there's marketing for women-owned brands. Like I said, I can't be the next Supreme Court justice. Like women are very much more empowered today, which I think is, I don't have no problem with it. I mean, like, good for you. But I think that the man I probably have privilege because I'm, 6 foot 210. Like no one's picking on me when I walk down the street. I used to live in Chicago and I used to walk home all the time at night. But like, was that smart? Probably not. But I felt a little safe because, I'm not 5 foot 100 pounds. I'm Max. I'm 29 and I'm a conservative man. In today's society, women and men can be whatever they want and be as successful or strong or as big of a leader as they choose. So I'm just wondering, in a society that is so seemingly more level than ever before, why are we transitioning to different genders to find, and what are we looking for?
It's yeah. It's just people not. It may be a level playing field. It doesn't mean that people that feel the because it's like a. Come if it is if it's because I think it's a mental thing. I think, like cause I think it's a thing a lot of you don't like you may be a female but you don't feel like you may feel like you're actually a man. So it's not the fact that it's not a thing of not being happy with like a balance or anything. Obviously, it's just people wanting to not feeling right in their own body. That's what it is.
Biology determines gender.
No. I don't know. I wouldn't say so.
Sex and gender, people try to argue that they're different, but sex and gender actually go hand to hand. And our biology, being a man, comes down to every fiber within our body. So whether that be DNA, chromosomes, testosterone levels, bone density, there's a whole bunch of different factors that go into it, and it all has to do with biology.
So biology, I 100% believe in biology. Today we talk about biology being a social construct. I disagree with that as a transgender person. I was born biologically female. I always acknowledge that, and today I live as a male. Now that being said, sex and gender, they are trying to separate those things. Gender can be, I've chosen my gender. As you see, nobody would, I think, probably understand that I used to be a female. Now, many people do, like you just said, believe that sex and gender are one thing and you can never change those. I'm not trying to change anything. I'm trying to show the world that this is how I feel by presenting the outside. But I think denying biology is where we get into a lot of problems.
If you want to be, seen as a man, then like,
right on.
Who are you to? I don't care. I mean, you do you, whatever makes you happy. But I think like it becomes a slippery slope. It's like, how are we going to deny basic human facts? Like, there's two genders.
I think that causes problems, and it causes problems for me.
Yeah.
Because the minute I start denying your biology, now you feel attacked by me. Right. And I don't want you to feel attacked by me. I never want you to feel, I want to be a part of, if that makes sense. You don't have to agree with my choice of how I live my life, but all I ask for is respect.
What do you have on your driver license and your birth certificate?
Right,
do you change it to male, or do you change it to?
So that being said, I transitioned to live as a man 29 years ago. So that was way before you see any of this stuff, and I had to acknowledge my biology, right? That being said, my license, I travel the world. It has to say male. Can you imagine if I showed up at the airport, they're like, female? Dude, there's something going on here. But I actually got my birth certificate changed to male. I was the first person to do that here in Los Angeles. But that being said, I kind of think that it might have been a mistake to do that now, looking forward today, because I never thought we would be having this conversation.
I'm glad you said that, because I love that people can express themselves. We live in America. It doesn't matter what I believe, what my religion is. I love that people can live their best life. I'll never, ever in my life protest or try to go against a person who wants to identify. The problem is when you begin to try to change language and you begin to try to change reality, and then therefore it changes on the children, and all of that becomes problematic. If a person says, okay, I acknowledge I'm born as a man or a woman, but I want to identify as this, cool, I respect that. And even if I didn't want to see it that way, and some people may be a little more ambiguous, I wouldn't never disrespect you. I'll call you by your name.
That's right.
Whatever name that you want to be associated with, I'll do that. And I think if everybody in the country can get on that same page, I think we'll see less division.
I've noticed in a lot of the trans individuals that I've met, the older generation who had it a lot harder in society to be accepted is a lot more willing to have the conversation.
We didn't have social media. I didn't have cell phones. I didn't have computers when I transitioned. This is how you build bridges. I'm Buck, I'm 59 years old, and I'm a trans man. Because I'm an elder trans man now, and there's a much newer generation, there's a definite space where I have a different way of being than the younger generation, and why I tend to call myself a transsexual man. And I believe in biology, I believe in binary, so it really does not necessarily align with the new thought process that is happening with the newer generation.
So I love this question. With trans folks, biology does change. Our bone density does change. Our muscle structure does change. Our testosterone levels do change. So biologically, we do change. Anatomically, now that's where surgeries come into play. So when we're talking about biology and gender that can't be changed, our biology absolutely and concretely changes.
Not the DNA.
But our
DNA does not change.
Yeah, DNA is not going to change for anyone.
So you acknowledge there's a biological difference between males and females, because some people on the other side would say there's no difference. Like a female, like I could look like a girl, not having testosterone, but I'm still a male.
Some people are male, some people are female, chromosomally. But when we start to take testosterone, our bodies do biologically change.
But what about trans men who don't take testosterone?
Then their bodies don't biologically change.
That means then they're biologically still female, right?
Well, and gender in itself is something we get to choose. Okay,
That's right.
Just like you said.
Well, in your,
right?
in your life, you get to choose. Not
That's
you don't
right.
get to choose it for the world, but you get to choose it
I
for
get to
your life.
choose my gender because I've been on testosterone for 10 years. Okay, going on 11 years.
But there's some anatomy that will never change.
That's right.
Right? I mean, you still have ovaries. You still have,
Yes.
the female reproductive system. You
Yes.
said that you had a child.
Yes, I've given birth. I no longer have female reproductive organs.
Right, but you had that. You will never get male productive organs.
Now, when you think about it, the male and female productive organs are similar, and they're nearly the same. They're different. Right. They're different in size.
Even if
biologically,
And they're different in
in
functionality too.
Not necessarily, because the testes and the ovaries are very much similar. One is an egg, one is a fertilizer,
But
and
we
that's
can
the
never,
difference.
but I never can produce sperm.
You're absolutely
ever,
right.
ever.
You're absolutely right.
And they can never produce ova.
And you guys are saying that gender is like a social construct. Is that what you're saying too, that you could change it? But also, if you want to be technical about it, age is a social construct, your ethnicity and race is a social construct, and I'm Hispanic. I can't say I'm Chinese because I like Chinese food. I could bleach my skin all I want. I could wear Chinese clothes.
No,
but
race
Chinese.
is not.
It's a
How
social
is
construct.
ethnicity going to be a construct?
There's all social constructs.
So
We all agree on it.
how
If you look
exactly?
Up, if you look up, is race a social construct? Ethnicity a social construct? Is time a social construct? Right. Everything's a social construct if you want to think about it that way. But we have set truths and we can't change those truths. If you want to say you're trans man, that means you're a biological female that thinks that you're a male.
I am a biological male. I'm an anatomically.
See, he's gonna have different
I'm
version
still
of it than,
right.
and I think it's really important that you understand
and
we're all gonna have
it's
different views.
anatomic, okay?
Yeah.
Because biologically, I have shifted, okay? Trans meaning going from one to the next.
Biologically and all these things, I know that there's importance for you guys, but meeting me or seeing me, you would never know. So why is it important?
Well, no, because just say
I'm just
if
curious.
I was a woman, just say if I was a woman and I wanted to date you, what are you going to tell me?
I would tell you that I'm trans. What do you
No,
mean?
no, I'm saying you can't tell me that you're a man.
I mean, I'm still a man.
No, but
I'm
you
a
got to tell
transgender
me.
man.
You got to tell me that you were born a woman. You have to.
I mean, I don't have to.
Well, because if I go down, if I see
Right.
you in your pants,
Right.
I'm going to see something different, and that will be troubling to me if I had an expectation.
But again, this is like leading off the topic, but I mean, to answer your question, if you must know, I do tell the person that I'm talking to or interested that I'm transgender. I don't think that you need it to, you don't need a penis to be a man. And I know that you may disagree, which is fine, like I get it, but I don't want one.
Now, I have a question for all of you. Do your penises make you men?
Yes, biologically.
It's part of what
that
makes me a man,
is that what makes you
Well, I
a man?
said being a man's ingrained within every part of your body, so our cells are.
Right,
yes, our
but
penis too,
if you had to look at the difference between us and between you, now would that difference be the lack of a penis?
If we were naked.
Okay.
I mean,
if we're gonna minimize being a man to that particular anatomy,
We didn't minimize.
No. I'm asking the question. Okay, if we minimize it, because this is where we're going, is anatomy, right? Because that's where we've gotten.
A basic
Okay,
biology, yeah.
so if we get there, so do your penises make you more men than us?
It's part of
It's
what
not
does.
making more or less. It's we're a biologically man. You're not a biological man.
It's not a spectrum,
It's
so
from-
it's not a question that we can answer, because you're saying on the spectrum, would this make us more of a man than you? But no, it's because we are a man and you guys aren't.
Well, we're different.
So
men.
we're not men.
We're
Is
different.
is exactly what you just said.
In my view, you guys are appropriating the gender, and you are living as a man, but biologically you are not a man. So to me, it's not. You can't say, okay, well, does that make us more of a man? That's not even a question to ask, because you're not a biological man. When it comes down to asking questions that make me start to change what the truth is and what the truth isn't, putting it on a spectrum when it's an objective truth, that's where I draw the line.
What's the biggest problem with what he said? It doesn't make you. It doesn't make what you feel any different. The biological truth is the truth, and why can't that be the truth? And you also say, but I feel like on the inside that I'm a man and I'm going to present that way.
The argument is that people try to invalidate who we are with that. I'm not saying that you guys are doing that, but a lot of society in the world does that. Well, biologically, you're female. What hurts trans people, that people don't realize what they're doing, is it's very harmful. You got to be aware of what you're saying and what you're putting out there. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, no, 100%. I would, and that's why I think we all agree. We would never try to offend you or anything like that. To be honest, if I saw any one of you in the streets, I don't care. It's not going to bother me that you want to.
Right.
I would know unless I pulled your pants down. Why do you feel like you have to present the way you do? You know, facial hair. Could you
Right.
be a man without having facial hair?
I mean, yeah.
Because you feel like you're a man.
I'm in the early stages of testosterone. I haven't hit 1 year yet. But personally for me, I crave, having a full-on beard like these fine gentlemen and you guys all have. Like, I crave it, But I do believe not having like this little small peach fuzz I have going on, it does make me feel more dysphoric. It makes me feel like, oh, this is how I presented before transitioning.
Do you feel like it's something that has gone wrong at birth? Like, you're born and you say, well, genetics and evolution says
Right.
this. Why do I feel like this,
yeah,
yet
I mean,
have
I
this?
think questioning it was something that I always wondered, because sometimes when people say like, oh, like it was a choice, which I hear a lot on the other side all the time, like it was a choice, I was legit born this way. Like I could remember from, I think 4 or 5 years old, where like I didn't feel like a girl, you know what I mean? And I can't tell you why that happened. It was just my path in this life. And it's something that I honored, and it was really hard for me to continue living, especially when puberty hit. Like time of month comes in, obviously anatomy changes, and that was the biggest thing for me, where I knew that okay, I can't do this. It's like you're not in your own home.
Children should be allowed to transition.
I was gonna say,
Now, my immediate thought is yes, on the basis that they should be allowed to make their own choices. However, I'm hesitant to say yes, just on the fact of, surgery sakes. Is it a safe thing to do that sort of a transition on a young child? Would that be safe? So, I'd say if it was safe to do, if it was if it's a thing of surgery, there's no concern with the surgery, just go swiftly like that. It'll be that simple. Then that's simple. No complications. Then yeah, sure thing. But and there's also the fact of education as well, because obviously I've heard this a lot with other subjects, but it's a thing of one of those things, because obviously kids can be very influenced and stuff by different things that they see, and so I don't know, the more I think about it, the more I'm thinking about other things, other factors. So I think, okay, I'm gonna say I don't know. I'm not too sure. because I'm realizing upon thinking about this, there are a lot of other factors involved in this that I cannot account for, and I cannot therefore base a solid judgment on. So I'm not too sure.
I find it very interesting that you and I are the only ones that stepped up, especially since we're younger. And
you should allow children to feel what they feel, because I felt the way that I felt for as long as I can remember, and it's something that I cannot deny.
Yeah.
You know, although my mother is supportive, when I was younger, I wasn't allowed to wear boys' clothes because that wasn't right. Now I know we're talking about transitioning. It doesn't always have to be hormones. It's like transitioning in society, so being able to dress more masculine.
Yeah.
I did when I was younger, but as I got into middle school, kids change, people are mean, so you know, I dressed how I would in society, so I dressed like a girl, whatever, but I think that children should be allowed to express themselves in whatever way makes them feel comfortable.
Yeah, so I agree with that there. Like, they should be able to express themselves in any way they want. To be honest, that's one side of the thing I didn't actually consider. Just like so, yeah. So putting aside my thoughts earlier from like the whole soldier point of view, everything you just said there, I agree with.
Kids are struggling to be who they are, and there's more rates of suicide for trans individuals because there's literally being laws put in place to prevent them from being who they are, and that's not right. That's not right.
Okay, so I work with children. This is where I have like the biggest problem with the trans stuff, is with the children, because people, like I'm sure you guys would agree, you want to inject them with the hormones to stop their puberty, their normal puberty. They haven't even developed their prefrontal cortex yet, and you want to stop their natural puberty from occurring to affirm their gender, and then later on they regret it. I think that's not a good thing.
See, that's why this is a loaded question, because transition can mean many things for children. Now, I totally, as a transsexual person, disagree with giving children hormone blockers, medication.
On Feb 22nd, 2022, so this year, Texas Governor Greg Abbott called for medical treatments for transgender teens to be classified as child abuse.
Surgery, but what I do agree with is socially transitioning, which means because I did that, okay, and I did that in the 60s and 70s. My parents dressed me like Buck, I was a boy, you know, I didn't have any problems because I just lived, we used to call it a tomboy, right? So that was totally, and I went through puberty and I did all the things. I do not believe children can make those choices, and I do not believe it's okay and ethical for a parent to make those choices for a child. But I do believe gender dysphoria exists in children. I had it, 100% it's there. But to give medication to a child is so unethical to me that you would actually, you're exactly what you said, you're stunting brain growth, you're stunting all of these things. They don't have enough research on it. So I'm in agreement with transitioning medically for children is not okay for me, but I do believe in a social space.
When you say a social transition, it's interesting to me because we can't control what happens in a social situation.
That's right. That's right.
So to me, and we talk about suicide rates among young trans people, this whole ideology is telling people to derive their value off of what somebody else is saying about them, or what somebody else affirms to them. So we say that, you know, society is the problem and we're not allowing people to be who they are, and that's why they're committing suicide. But maybe it has to do with the messaging that we're sending to these kids, that you derive your value from if somebody uses your correct pronoun, or you derive your value if this person accepts you for wearing a dress. Be who you are, but tell them to be empowered about it and not get that empowerment from somebody else.
That's right.
I feel like that's really kind of inconsiderate to say that someone would take their life because what someone else says. To somebody, that is important. To somebody, I have friends who, their family does not use their correct pronouns and they've transitioned and they live in the same household. This person struggles with depression and anxiety. Could you imagine living in an environment like that where you're no longer validated? That's coming from your own parents.
But if you base your validation off of other people, this is a hard truth, but if your sole validation
no, you definitely have to do it. Listen,
I
I could give
people,
a shit when everyone thinks about me. I do what I want. But for everyone, that's not the case because everybody has different personalities.
Right, but that doesn't make it any. That doesn't mean that.
But it's
we
still.
should
But
be
what you're not
telling people to get
acknowledging. Listen, what you're not
validation from
acknowledging though
others.
is that in that environment, it is not supported.
I'm acknowledging that. I'm
Okay.
just saying that we're saying that for some reason they should look for that validation from somebody
When
else
you
rather
love
than find it
somebody and you
within.
have a family, you want them to
But you're
validate you.
focusing not on the individual. You're focusing on the people outside of that
Yeah, but the
individual.
individual.
I'm focusing on empowering that individual.
But part of being a
You're-
person is needing to be validated. You don't need to be validated ever in your life.
It got on the left there. He's got a point. Like, I think the easiest way for me to put this is it's a baseline of respect. I think that's what it boils down to. For that, but with this argument in specifically here, like, it just comes down to the basic etiquette of respect.
From your
No.
family or your friends.
I get my
Never.
validation from within, and then the.
Right,
There's
but
no way.
if we're talking about children, okay, if we're
A
talking,
child.
okay, I was an 8-year-old when I found out that I wasn't biologically male, right? I was 8 when I found out that I wasn't the same as my brothers, okay? And so going through that process, I attempted suicide 4 times because my mother was like, well, you are a girl. When you're 8 and you're 12 and you don't have anyone else that is in your space, when you don't have anyone else that lives in the same house as you to tell you you're okay, where are you supposed to go? How are you supposed to garner your own self-validation if the people that are raising you don't validate who you are?
As a father, you know, my duty is to raise my children the way I believe is right. And if my child somehow struggles with this, which is fine, we'll have that conversation. But I'm going to let it play out the way I believe it should be played out. And at 18 years old, you can do whatever you want to do. If you don't want to wear dresses, that's fine. I mean, just wearing it, if you want to dress like a boy, don't make you want to be a boy. Don't mean you have to be a boy. My mom was a tomboy, and my mom had me and my brother, and she's a woman, you know, and she lives like that. But, you know, you may want to dress a little different. Maybe a boy want to do cheerleading or something like that.
Right.
But that don't mean you need to transition to something else. So I want that to play out until my child is old enough to make that decision on their own. Also, you have to teach your children to have balance, because if you just want mommy and daddy to acquiesce to everything you want, that's not reality. You have to understand that mom and dad may not see me this way. They love me. I see myself this way, and I disagree with how they speak to me or how they're, but I love them as well. I love, like my son, if he said that he was, and I'm a Christian and I don't believe in homosexuality, I don't. I respect anybody that feel that way. I never, protest you at all. If my son came to me, it would be a struggle for me to want to go to his wedding. I'm just going to be honest. But I think that my son should understand this is the way my dad feel. I love him. This is the way I feel, and we have mutual love. And that don't mean I hate you. That just mean we disagree. And I wish that same sentiment would be, and I think it's the same on this panel. Like, there's no hate in any of this. I love every single person on this side. And we may think of things differently, but we love each other. It can't be one-sided.
I am lucky, I'm 41, and I'm a trans man. One of my greatest fears as a trans man is my life being taken from me because I'm a trans man. Transitioning in a black neighborhood with gang members as neighbors, they weren't having that. So the more that my body started to look a lot like theirs, I was challenged on a regular basis. I was beaten up because someone recognized me from prior to my transition and approached me and confronted me and called me a liar and told me I was a bitch. And I, out of safety, was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And they cold cocked me and I lost a front tooth.
I grew up with a positive father figure.
Yeah, I'd say so, yeah. I have. For as long as I've been alive, I know that my dad has tried to raise me in the best way that he knew how, and I'd say he did a very good job of that. He always tried to help me wherever in the best way he knew how to wherever I was struggling, and he it's not an exact example, but it's something similar to this. So obviously, so how some parents can disapprove this, some people can have parental difficulties if they are transgender because of the fact that they are that. And some people have parents who are quite accepting of their children if they are trans. My similar situation was with YouTube. For the longest time, most that I can remember in my life, I've enjoyed watching YouTube, and I've enjoyed watching these people make these videos, and I wanted to try it myself, and I've been enjoying it. And when I told my mum, my dad, my stepmom that I wanted to do this, they've always supported it. And you always supported it. They never stopped. And I even, especially from my dad, I even got, he'd always, because obviously he made me, I had one of my old YouTube accounts was on an account that he made. And whenever there was like a YouTube email about terms and conditions updates, he'd always send that my way, and always telling me to like be careful of things like copyright claims and all these other other stuff. So he was a very obviously he did a very good job of that, and I appreciate him for that. And obviously now he unfortunately cannot he is not able to continue to support me because I won't say how just yet, but he passed away last year. I've got the service ceremony leaflet thing here. I had to double check the year it was, but I'm still, I bet even if he was still around, he'd still be supporting me all the way. Yeah, so yeah, I agree. I did grow I definitely grew up with one, and he never and I don't, apart from obviously like the normal parental stuff of like me doing bad things and him telling me off for doing those bad things, he never discouraged me in any way. He'd always, whenever I had a thought or something, whenever I wanted to try something, he was always very encouraging, and I was always grateful of that.
This is good.
I think for me it's surprising, because I would believe that a woman or a person who's born as a woman who now identifies as a man didn't have a positive role model as a man, and therefore they felt somewhat insecure as a woman, which makes them, feel a certain way and want to be a certain different person. Maybe they want to be the man that their father never was, or whatever the case may be. And so it was very interesting. I mean, being honest, it was interesting to see pretty much a majority of you guys come forward.
That's so great. I think that's really important that you say that, because I do think a lot of people probably feel that way about guys like me, right? That our fathers we didn't have the right upbringing or what. My father was amazing. I grew up really like a little boy. I always felt like a little boy. My parents actually raised me, and I'm 59 years old, so that was in the 60s and the 70s when we didn't even talk about this kind of stuff. But my parents actually felt it from me. So I think that that's a misconception that people think about people like us.
Any good father pushes their child to feel self-love, and to feel like they can be who they want, do what they want, and have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? Like our founding fathers. And so it's fatherlessness, or having a missing dad, is a pandemic in its own, and it's one that obviously I'm sure Brandon can attest to. It's so critical to have a father in the house, because kids get lost when they don't have one, and having a father that's loving and strong and someone you can rely on is the reason why we're all comfortable with who we are.
I had several different father figures in my life, so it wasn't, I had a dad, but then I had my grandfather and I had my uncle. It takes a village to raise a child, right? But all of those different perspectives raised me as a well-rounded human. Like, you know, if we take the masculinity out of it, just as a human, I got to see different perspectives. And so now as a father that has given birth to a child, and that child being a male, right, I'm able to raise him with those same ideals that I'm able to identify because of the father figures that I had.
I didn't have my father growing up. He was not present in my life at all. So it showed me that some men can step up, like my grandfather and my stepfather, who have taken me in and showed me how to take care of myself, how to be, you know, strong and dependable. And all I've been able to do is give more love to all people that I interact with.
Right.
So it was really important for me to have those figures.
I think this is a really important thing to show people that are watching this, because a lot of times I feel like we can blame any issues in society or anything that arises on the generation that came before us. So any issues that arise in our society, it's like, there's not always a reason why it's happening. We just need to address the issue and solve it.
I grew up with all women. My parents were divorced, and I lived with my mom. I had my aunts. So I was raised by women, but my dad was there sometimes, and then my stepdad took me in as his own, so I had my stepdad as a father figure.
I grew up with all women as well. My mom used to tell me I have to be your mom and your dad. So like there would be times where I got both. Like she was super sweet with me or really strict on me, and like she taught me a lot as well. Like growing up with women, it taught me a lot of vulnerability.
You know, when you were talking to, I was like, I relate to you very well. But yeah.
I'm Jacob. I'm 27 years old, and I'm a trans man. So the relationship with my dad and how unsupportive he is has been a challenge for me, but it's something that I've learned to grow past. And I encourage everyone that even if you don't have a parent who is supportive, to still be authentically yourself, because your life is meant to be lived for you. And I think that choosing my happiness above all else has made my life that much better, and I wouldn't change anything. Even though he wasn't supportive, I still wouldn't have him here.
Listening to all your guys' points, I would definitely say, yeah, I did have a father figure. He was in the Marines, and he has this very like toxic masculinity mindset. A lot of anger built up that I can definitely tell he suppressed, you know, in the Marines, because that's what he was taught to do. That's what the Marines are about. He always carried that with him, and I think that's what he tried to instill in me and my siblings at a very young age, which made it hard for me to be vulnerable with myself. And I just saw a lot of anger issues that were, you know, very violent sometimes. And since coming out as trans, I feel like he's been more willing to understand me more and trying to figure out who I am as a person.
Someone's going to start very quickly there, because I think I'm all, and that's because of something he mentioned, and I want to like put my thoughts on this. I'm all for like I'm all for parents teaching their kids to like be strong and be you know, like his dad was, like, be strong and just like, you know, the hold themselves up and everything else. And for like when they're going, I feel like they're going against tough, not to like just like curl up in a ball and think the whole world is ending or whatever. And much as I think that's an okay thing. I think it has to be done with great care, because obviously kids are kids. They're obviously young and they don't understand the whole world. So if they do something, and you say, and they think if they do something wrong, and then obviously you tell them they can't cry or they can't, and they got to man up or whatever, or something along those lines, and obviously it might not have the effect that the parent wanted. So I think I'd say there's nothing wrong with teaching your kid to be like strong and like tough like that, but I think it should be done with great care.
And because of that, I feel like our relationship has definitely got a lot stronger since then.
I can't imagine how difficult it is to come home and then try to be vulnerable after suppressing so much pain and hurt for years. So it's good to hear that, you know, he's learning and kind of evolving and opening up. That's something where, you know, you guys were talking about vulnerability, right? And it's like there's times when it's good to be hard.
I don't show emotion as much as I'd like.
No.
I definitely have sensed and noticed since transitioning that being on testosterone has made me cry less, which is very interesting, because I believe that before I transitioned and started taking testosterone, I feel like not being able to cry as much, it makes me like, I'm like, damn, I wish I could cry right now, but it's not gonna happen. Hi, I'm Gabe.
No, I mean, this is actually a thing actually a thing I experienced in my life. Like and it's not that I don't cry as much as I'd like to. It's just that I just don't do it apparently. Or at least I do, just probably at the wrong things. So like for example, my I just like I mentioned a minute ago. So along with my my biological dad, my stepdad also passed away from the same thing as my dad did. And the first time was my stepdad, and I think I just like, I don't know, I just hadn't had my whole life with him or something. I just hadn't grown up with him or stuff, or whatever reason I didn't have like a connection like I did with my dad. And basically, when he died, I thought that I was a little concerned because I throughout the entire, because when they'd been to the hospital and when they came back they said that he had cancer and that it was going to be a difficult time, and I thought, and all up at the time of the funeral I was a bit concerned with myself because I was like, I think I've not felt that sad. Should I have felt that sad? I don't know. Or at least I didn't. I hadn't cried once during the entire thing. I was like, should is that not a good thing? Is that good or not? Is that bad? But then obviously, as I grew up, obviously I understood just life a lot more. And then obviously my dad then died, and I thought, and again I hadn't. It was pretty easy. It wasn't a thing of it was like I went into I went into the denial or anything. I knew that he was gone. I knew that he was gone, and it was not good. But I knew that he wasn't there anymore. So I think, and that's when I discovered that I'm just not as emotional as or I don't grieve like everyone else do. Although there was one thing that is concerning in that entire situation, and that being the fact that for some reason the death of two parental figures didn't make me cry, but the death of Tony Stark brought a tear to my eye, and the time when I thought Peter Quill in the second Guardians film was gonna die, that almost made me cry. That bit's a bit more concerning on my part, but I'm gonna leave that on there. But no, I definitely don't. I think if I watched this Final App was asked that a while ago, I don't cry as much as I'd like, I may have answered yes, but now I'm like, no. I know I don't get very emotional about not a lot of things, and it's not that I don't feel sad about it. I do. I just don't like. I don't get bored of tears by it all. So yeah.
Maybe, and I'm a trans man. Before transitioning, I guess only presented as lesbian, but since transitioning, I've been able to be more comfortable with my sexuality. I've definitely seen on like dating apps and stuff a lot of conservative men fetishizing trans individuals, and it's interesting because a lot of the time they say that they don't identify as gay or within the community, and yet they're fetishizing my community.
So I don't know about you guys, but I always speak my mind. If I feel a certain way, I'll tell somebody, and that probably cost me a lot of relationships, but that's just how I am. So
I don't think there's anything wrong with, I know we talked about vulnerability, a long time ago. I don't think there's anything wrong with being vulnerable. I think, like we said, there's times and places for it. Knowing when it's okay to be vulnerable and being self-aware of that, and then, being strong when you need to, and being sad, when it's appropriate. But I certainly am not as vulnerable or not as emotional as probably I should, because it's not something that I always did growing up. But I don't feel like I have any real issues like suppressing. I just feel like I kind of get it out in other ways.
Yeah, that's great you look at it like that, because I believe for me, like my personal experiences, like because I was one, to transition at a very young age, and my dad being in the military, being a veteran, he would see me being vulnerable at times, and he'd be like, well, don't you want to be a man? And that would make me feel like, oh, am I not supposed to be vulnerable anymore? Now that I'm gonna transition, and it was just like very hard for me because, like I said earlier, it was hard for me to have that father figure at that time of my life.
My process of, digesting emotions is by myself, and I use that time to self-reflect. So if I'm feeling angry, or if I'm, feeling really passionate about something, or whatever the emotion is, sometimes I pull back and I don't show that emotion because I'm reflecting on it and trying to understand why it's there. So I think a lot of times people can think men aren't showing enough emotion, but in reality they're just self-assessing why that emotion is there in order to see what it's trying to teach us.
Right. I think when I was female, I was much more angry. I was just reactive, angry, like, "Grr." And then as I became a man, I cry more now as a man than I ever did as a woman. And I think it's because I'm at peace with myself. And so before I was just so angry about being a woman and everyone calling me she and seeing a girl, and I'd just be, as a fashion model. So that really just took it to a whole other level. And then once I became a man, it was like, whoa, I can actually relax. And I think I do the same thing. I self-reflect on myself. I want to be this type of man that is more vulnerable and that is more accessing my own emotions.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh, wow.
Right on. Thank you.
That was cool. That was cool.
Thank you.
Oh, wow. Oh. By the way, that yawn was not me getting bored, that was me just being generally tired. It is about 7:20 in the evening right now. Yike, well, that was definitely worth the watch. Definitely worth the 45 minutes. There's a lot of stuff covered there. And, yeah. After seeing this, I think it's less that it's disappearing. I think it's just being shown in different ways, I think. And the reason I'm struggling to make an opinion on this now is that there's been so much discussion on this. It's been 3/4 of an hour of discussion on this subject. Probably, well, more with all like my interjections, but like there's been a lot of subjects that I've kind of all just molded into one. I can't remember them all. And I think I'll leave it as it's not. I don't think it's disappearing. I think it's just whatever I said a second ago. I can't actually remember now. But me putting anything, put it back in a second. It's less that it's disappearing. I think it's just being shown in different ways, I think. But yeah. So other than that, it was a good video, and again, much worth the 45 minutes. And that's the notes. And so yeah, that brings us to the end of this video. So thank you all so much for watching this video. Again, as per usual, if you liked it, please leave a like, leave a comment. Again, Jubilee middle ground rules apply to the comments. Please keep everything civil and like civil argument, civil debate. No like hating each other's beliefs or saying or whatever the fucking word is, demeaning other people's, putting down other people's beliefs. Same rules as middle ground apply to the comment section, and if not, action will be taken to delete comments and everything else. So also consider subscribing to my channel, such as Beckett, if you would like. In the description, there's a link to my link tree, which has, at this point, I'm just gonna say a whole host of stuff on there. A load of other stuff a load of other places that I am that you can see stuff from me from. So go take a look, because at this point it's gonna get to the point where these intros become longer and longer the more I list every single thing that's on the link tree. So just go and have a look at the link tree, and you'll see a load of stuff that I got elsewhere. Thank you all again for watching, and I shall see you all in the next video. Adios.